Hey guys, welcome back to Tamiya Legends, and once again, thank you for stopping by. So it's build day. I love a build day. Total from scratch, new inbox kit of what they now call the Racing Buggy, but obviously it's a Rough Rider. So this is a re version. I'm not going to go into a lot of details because this is a build video. If you want to see the previous video I did on this, I'll stick it in the description, where we just look at everything the kit has inside. But as I say, this is a build video. So right now, as we stand, I'm planning on doing the full chassis build on this video, but that'll depend how long this video goes. I'm not going to do it in real time. I'm just going to do it in sections and then keep coming back to it. So hopefully if I can condense it down to, I don't know how long it'll be, 20, maybe half an hour max, and hopefully we'll get the full chassis into that. But if not, I'll break it into a part 2 because I don't want to rush it. So as I say, super excited. I love a brand new build. It's awesome. So let's get the preparation work done, and as I always say, let's get cracking. So as always, I'll just get the bits out that I need. So I've left all the body shell stuff in the box. All the part bags are out. As you can see, I've got the manual, I've got my little tubs to start filling up. I just generally go A, B, C and put the different parts in there. It's just easier, and obviously you don't lose anything. On the vac form parts, I'm going to leave the tyres where they are, but obviously I'll need the gearboxes and the universal joints out. And this section here, I'm just going to completely get all those bits out, and then we'll set the table up ready to go. Right, we're good to go. So all I've done, as I say, is put parts bags A to D into tubs, and then there's other bags that I just don't open, I just leave them. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, the first 4 sections is all the gearbox housing, building it up. So I've got all those parts out. I've left the rest of it in there, although I've taken the arms. So there's a lot of thread lock needed. I've got an old grease, I'm not using the new one, so I'll use that up. We've got the trusty Tamiya toolkit, which no builder should be without in my opinion. Gearbox covers are out, manual craft knife, more importantly, half a cup of coffee, smoky pen. I think we're good to go, guys. So yeah, first stage is building the gearbox up. So let's get all the bits out for that. Well, straight into the build, and the very first thing you do, it's not as straightforward as you would think. So you get this metal gear shaft with a hex in one piece, and this gear is just supposed to slide over the shaft, and it's got a hex on the gear. But there's not a chance you could do that with brute force, and I tried. It's a really mega tight fit. So what I ended up doing was getting like a 15mm socket on a hard floor. So I sat the spindle so it was flat down to the metal, so I won't damage any teeth, and I had to hammer it down gently, but I had to tap that all the way home, and it took a lot more force than I would have expected. Anyway, I've got it flush now. So I just thought that was quite an interesting thing. Right, that's the gearbox set up. So there's 3 spindles gone in. It's all greased up. I put plenty of grease in now, but you can't really tell. It's very precise gearbox. Everything's a tight fit, even just getting the bearings on. It's really precise, which I really like. So next stage is to put the other side of the gearbox together using 7 of these bolts, and we also then I don't want to make this fall out, but if you see the spindle sticking out, and that puts the universal joint on either side, but that needs thread locking. So we'll get that all built up now. Right, that's the gearbox together. Lots of thread lock on this. Obviously you get it in within the kit. I've really put quite a fair bit on, to be honest. So you've got 7 bolts all the way around the gearbox. They're all thread locked, and then you put the universal joints on as well, and you thread lock them. So that's it all in. Feels great. Get some grease around it. So very straightforward at that stage. So next is gearbox and sticking the arms on, so I'll get those bits ready now. Right, next stage, so you tighten the arms up one grub screw underneath, and then you have this spring, which is a little bit fiddly to get. There's a little bush that you've got to get down and got to get it well greased. But this is a rear suspension basically, so that hook there pushes into that arm, and then as you can imagine the tension and where my finger and thumb is pushing it down when it's on the chassis, and that's basically your suspension. And there's a little torsion bar that goes in between those two rods, which I've got to put on. So it's a little bit fiddly at the moment, but next stage is putting the actual drive arms on, and then put the grub screw on the other side of the universal joint. So yeah, let's get cracking with that. So I just thought I'd show you quickly, the torsion bar just goes on it, pushes the rods in either side, and then obviously that's going to be sat to the chassis, but you can then gauge, you've then basically got your suspension either side on this torsion system. Very cool. Right, that's that stage 3 done. So basically both drive shafts are now in, bearings in the cups, thread locked on the inside again, which is, as I say, it's quite a messy job, and you've got to make sure you get the residue off once you've tightened it up. But as you can see, they're nice and smooth. They've come out the holes, but that doesn't matter. And then the next stage is the motor just slips in this metal. It just slides all the way in it, and then you have this plastic cover which has the 3 bolts. Motor wires feed through it, and that's what bolts your motor down, which is pretty cool. I'm enjoying this build, guys, I have to say. It's very cool. I'm just going to put those springs back in. There we go. And then we've got, that's sort of basically everything working with the torsion bars. Right, so next stage is to fit the pinion and spur. So let's get cracking with that. So as we initially thought, there's 2 gear ratios. There's a high ratio and a low ratio. I'm going to go for the high ratio, which is this setup, which is a 20 tooth pinion and a 65 tooth spur. The other option you get in the kit is, God, I can't see that. Is it 15? Yeah, 15 tooth pinion, and that needs a 70 tooth spur. So as I say, we're going for the high ratio, which is this setup. Right, that's the spur and pinion on and greased up, and it all feels very nice, to be honest. So the last stage on this is to fit the protective cover, which goes like that. So what screws do we need? So it's a small in here. Let's do this on camera now. Don't tighten it. And then what else is there? Sorry guys, I'm struggling to do this on camera. So the 2 long ones go into here because I'm looking around the camera to do it, which is never ideal. That one goes in there. Don't tighten it. And then the 4th bolt just goes down there. I forgot to say the spur gear is held on with the normal split pin that goes through, but I'll show you. But it also has a small bolt and washer that goes through, which is again thread locked. Let's just tighten this up, just nip them up, not too tight. And then final nip. In fact, we'll go corner to corner. And that is that. And again, what an absolute pleasure that was to build. I'll tell you what, it's starting to get a bit of weight. It certainly is. But we've got, like, as I say, the suspension arms are kind of there. And the gearbox, very smooth, as you would expect. Lovely, very happy with that. Right, let's figure out what's next. So the next stage was to build the rear, I don't know what you call it, engine bay and roll bar. Put this nice little, what Tamiya call pipe joiner, I think they call it, which is metal. Looks really nice. That goes together really well. Got these two ugly bolts sticking out, so obviously something else is going to fit onto there. But that's that section. Which means, what's next? So it's the dampers to build next. Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking what those two big bolts go onto, and that mounts your rear dampers. That makes more sense. So yeah, let's get these 4 dampers built. So I thought I'd just show you, I built one damper up, but I just thought I'd show you how they go together. So there's two front, 2 back. So 2 circlips on the front, either end of the piston, and then plastic washer, O-ring, plastic washer, and then the bit that screws onto the shock body, and this nice brass piece that grub screws down. So there's not a great deal of oil in these, and what you have to do, you have to fill, this is going to be difficult to show you, there's a lip in there, you fill the oil up to that, and then you push that, and you put this into the top, and then you push down by 1/3, and then oil starts to come out, and then you screw this gently, and oil, whilst you're doing this, is piling out, and then you pull it back gently. But that's the outcome. But it's quite a bit of a clean-up to do. The oil comes out, but that's which way around the dampers go? It's that way. So that's how it works. Oops, you can feel it damping. Feels quite nice and smooth. So I'll get the other 3 filled, and then we'll move on to the next stage. Right guys, taking shape now. So I've got the dampers on, got the rear cage fitted. Looks very, very nice, I have to say. I can't turn that motor really. I made a mistake. I assumed the long damper would go on the rear, and I fitted one, but obviously it doesn't. It's the shorts on the back. See if you can see it working. That's the rear with the damper working. This side. So yeah, it feels nice, feels smooth. So anyway, that's that section. So that's basically the rear end done. So I'm just looking over to the next stage. There's some little protective covers for the motor wires that seal this up. You slide over, and then it slides into these little brackets and basically seals the motor off. So I've got to do that, and then it's the 2 chassis plates and bolt the rear end down. So let's get cracking. Right, just thought I'd show you that. So it's 3 bolts through the metal plate, through the FRP chassis, and the 2 outside bolts are thread locked into the alloy gearbox. They have this thing which has got a strange name. Tamiya call it a well nut, but apparently that's just temporary for now. So obviously you don't thread lock it. So that's all in place. That's basically the back end done. So as I said, now we're moving on to the front and start building that up. So I'm just going to go make a coffee, and then we'll get the front end built. Well guys, I've made a massive jump because that section is really involved. It's not difficult, but you've really got to take your time. It doesn't all come together until the very end. So everything's hanging off, everything's loose. Where the upright attaches, I thought it was wrong, because you put these little plastic cups in and the ball joint snaps into that, and then you tighten it, and it looks like, I thought the ball joints were too long. You've got left and right marks, you've got upper and lowers, and to top it all off, everything is thread locked. Just to give you some idea of how much thread lock goes on this car, That was a Tamiya full tub. You know, it just shows, normally you use thread lock from a Tamiya kit and it looks like it's never been used when you built it. But yeah, that was quite involved. It's an enjoyment now, I've got to say. So your spring at your front, if you don't know this car, it's an actual spring, and you can put it. So I've moved the spring down to its hardest setting, and it works like that. And obviously you've got your upright, and then on the other side, nice and smooth. But yeah, wow, that is. It's funny because I knew it's quite a simple kit, and I sort of flew through a couple of hours and I had that back end bolted down, finished to the chassis, but probably an hour and a half. But this bit has taken about an hour and 20, and it was just because I was double checking everything. Very, very cool. What a design that is. I know modern day it's rubbish, but what was it, 79 or whatever this was originally out, this design I'm talking about. I'm just looking here, there's a gap there, and there's grub screws everywhere, but I am just looking at that. I'm wondering if I need to just slacken that off and see if that closes slightly. Just get this one. Get in, slacken that off and see. Yeah, that's closed slightly. See, that just shows you. I thought I'd got everything, but obviously I hadn't. Let's get some. Right. Yeah, it looks better. Just make sure it's still free, which it is. Right, what a unit. What a thing this is. Right, so sorry I missed a load of steps for you guys if you were kind of following along, but to build that right I had to concentrate and make sure everything was good. So that was the end of that stage we've just done. So now we're on this, which is part of the weird servo, well, a steering mechanism, but it's got quite a strange servo saver that goes on. But just looking, we get that little unit built up, and then this front end's getting bolted down to the chassis, and tie rods are getting put on and whatever. So we actually are getting to the end of the build, but it's all going to come together quite quickly. So let's make this little unit up. Right, if you guys have never seen the SRB design, this is the servo saver, and that is actually a metal ring, and that's what saves the servo basically. Now I can't show you this really well because it's not bolted down, but basically if you watch this metal clip, you see it opening up. That's your servo saver. What a crazy design. So I just thought I'd show you that before I bolt it on down to the chassis. So the next stage now is to get that front end on with this. So I'll do all that in one hit and then I'll come back to you. Right guys, that's the front end bolted down. Again, 5 bolts and every one of them thread locked. And the steering unit's in with the tie rods. Now there's a long rod that feeds into the dustproof section, but as you can see, that's basically how it works. It's nice and smooth, and there's not a great deal of play with it either. Obviously it grips on this, I'll do it this side, this turnbuckle grips, and that's how your steering works. So yeah, we're getting there now. So next stage, looking at the manual, is, let's have a look, bolt the bumper down and then turn over, and then obviously we're not fitting electrics into this one, so that's the steering mechanism, the rod which goes to your servo. So it's just a case of building that up. Skip that, don't need that. Put the quick release bolts on the lid and then put it all together, and then it bolts down with 2 rubber mounts, and then it's the wheels and tyres. So we are almost there. and then obviously then it's the body shell, but that's going to be a different video. So let's get this dustproof cover done, and before I bolt the quick release lid down, I'll show you the steering working. Right, a couple of interesting things to note. So the bumper is very simple. There's two plastic pips you've got to knock off or cut off, and then it's just bolted down with two quite substantial bolts and washers. And again, maybe you can see the thread lock into this unit. So that's all thread locked down. The two rubber pieces that hold this down, they're pretty cool. That's this bolt and this bolt. Obviously the rubber mounts start quite high, and then you place this unit on, hold it down and start screwing them up, and the rubber condenses and then gets a good grip of it. So that's quite cool. Little box goes on with 4 small screws. The steering, obviously I'm not putting a servo in, but you get the gist of it. Obviously the servo goes here and it does that, and it's got this little gator to keep the dust out. But that kind of wants setting up properly once you've got your servo in, because when I'm pushing it there, it's moving the gator like I've just done there. So that's kind of one for when you've got your servo in. Oh, get it back on. I hate when little stupid things like that happen. Come on, get on. Quite fragile thing as well, so I don't want to. There we go. Just that last lip to get on. There we go. So as you can see, that's the design it does, but again, no electrics. And then the lid, this is really cool. They have these quick release bolts. So the lid sits on like that, and then just need to find my right size. That goes into there. You turn it till you find it. It slips down, and then you turn quarter of a turn and it clips in. Really cool. So push down, lock like that. I like this idea, it's cool. And that's it, and that's tight. And that's it, and that's on pretty solid. It does move, which it made me wonder when I had my sand scorcher, because I always thought that was a little bit loose, but that's just the way it should be. So that is pretty much there. I just took those wires in away so I don't get caught on anything. So next up is to build the wheels and tyres up now. Fit them on, and then that's the chassis basically done. But yeah, very nice. Very, very nice. Very, very happy with that so far. Right, let's get the wheels and tyres built. Right, wheels and tyres. So there's 5 screws in each, and front and rear wheels are 3-piece each. So you get the centre sections, and then 2 outers, or an outer and an inner. We've got these sandblaster rears and the rear fronts, which only say Tamiya there instead of sandblaster, which is such a shame. And then I've just dug out the screws. They're all the same size, so that makes it easy. The nuts, 2 pins, and then the axles to go on. So let's get those built. Right guys, that's the wheels and tyres done. Quite straightforward. It takes a bit of time though, put the bearings in as well. As I say, there's 5 screws and 5 nuts. But they have screws with the same size, which I thought it might be different fronts and backs. Bit of a mission to get the centre bit into the rears, but there is a technique to it. But yeah, that's looking cool. So what I'll do now is I'll move the camera over, and we'll do the final step together, so you can just see the wheels and stuff going on. Right guys, let's get the final stage done. Just take that body clip out, put the pin in, oops, put that pin in, just turn that wheel slightly so it doesn't fall. Adapter on, goes on like that, rear wheel. Wheel nut. Just want to make sure that nice. Let's do the other side. Take the pin out. Ooh. I'm starting to get weary now with it. You know, you get that feeling where you come into the end and it's like it almost can't come soon enough, if that makes sense. That's because the way I do everything in as quickly as I can. Well, it's not really as quickly as I can, it's just to get it done in one video. Sounds nice. That's the suspension. It's a strange setup. Anyway, as I say, got the ball racers in the wheels. Put that on. Nut. Sorry guys, I know I should be talking now, shouldn't I? And that is pretty much that. You get the steering. Front suspension feels good actually. I think that maybe because I put it on its highest setting. The rear suspension is always a bit of a, you can never really tell because it's got this really floppy angle. Looks like I've got my angles right as well. Gearbox seems sweet, but when I must admit, when I sit them I have to straighten the back wheel slightly. And when I do that, the stance might be wrong at the front, so I might just have to take move the spring up to the next setting. I don't like them with the wheels at that, on that shape, but anyway, that's pretty much that for now. And she's done. And what did I think to it? I loved it, if I'm honest. It's completely different from anything else. I mean, as I say, I've never built an SRB. I've drove a few, but never really worked on one as such. So I didn't really know what to expect. But it's quite an involved build. That front end, it's tricky. You've got to take your time. But it's really nice, very nice. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It's definitely not for the beginner, I wouldn't have said. But I don't really think it's a kind of kit somebody who doesn't know about Tamiya would buy, if I'm honest. As I say, they're not the greatest runners, although they've got their own thing. But yeah, I'm ultra for that. So that's taken me about probably about 6 hours, 6.5 hours to get it to that stage, with a couple of coffee breaks in between and what have you. But I'm not looking at the shell. That can be for the next video. I'm not even going to sort of sit it on. I'm just going to do that completely separate, which I'm looking forward to. It's cool. Nothing better than building a new in-box Tamiya, you know, nothing better than building a kit from scratch. It's you just start there with all your tubs and all these hundreds of screws and parts, and you just know, with it being Tamiya, I've never had a part missing ever, and it's very seldom you hear of anything missing. But I've never had anything like that happen, so it's really nice, and just such an old classic design, isn't it? So anyway, I'll shut up. I've no idea how long this video is going to have been, but I'm just going to put it out in one video, even if it's over half an hour, because I enjoyed it. So guys, once again, thanks for watching. It's really appreciated. If you are new to this channel, if you could please consider liking and subscribing to support us, and if you do that, smash the notification bell for our weekly videos. But as always guys, the most important thing of all is happy RCing.